Hannah Clarke never imagined that the person she trusted most, Laura Bennett, would be the one secretly watching her every move. And by the time Daniel Reeves realized he was being framed, it was already too late to stop a crime that would leave the entire town of Ridgeway in shock. Ridgeway was the kind of town where nothing truly shocking ever happened, which is why the flashing red and blue lights outside the small blue house on Maple Street felt unreal. Early Sunday morning joggers were the first to notice the police cars. By noon, the entire neighborhood stood behind yellow tape, whispering in disbelief. Inside the quiet home, 34-year-old schoolteacher Hannah Clarke was found lifeless in her bedroom. There were no broken windows, no forced locks, no overturned furniture. The house looked as if time had simply stopped. Hannah had always been careful. She double-checked her doors at night and rarely invited people over. Her daily routine rarely changed. She arrived home from school around 4, watered the plants near the front window, and kept the porch light on after sunset. Neighbors described her as calm and responsible. Nothing about her lifestyle suggested danger. Yet investigators quickly noticed small details that did not fit. Her phone was missing from the bedside table where she always left it. A glass of water sat untouched on the nightstand. The alarm system had been manually disarmed shortly before midnight using the correct code. This was not random. Whoever entered the house knew exactly how to get inside and how to leave without panic. The silence of the room felt planned. It felt deliberate. And somewhere in that stillness was the beginning of a secret that no one in Ridgeway had seen coming. Detectives began by examining Hannah's final days, hoping something small would explain the impossible scene inside her home. At school, co-workers admitted she had not been herself. She seemed distracted, often staring at her phone with a worried expression. She had recently asked the principal about transferring to another district. When asked why, she simply said she needed a change. Her laptop told a deeper story. Search history revealed she had been looking into restraining orders, digital stalking, and hidden tracking devices. She had even browsed online stores for small security cameras. It was clear she felt unsafe, but she had not told anyone how serious it had become. Attention quickly turned to her ex-boyfriend, Mark Ellison. Their breakup months earlier had been described as tense. Friends said he struggled to accept the separation. However, security footage placed him at a gas station nearly 30 miles away around the estimated time of death. The timestamp appeared solid, but detectives remained cautious. Meanwhile, forensic experts analyzed her online accounts. They discovered multiple unknown logins to her email over the past 3 weeks. Someone had accessed her private messages late at night. The logins came from public networks across town. Then another disturbing development surfaced. Hannah's missing phone was discovered in a trash bin behind her house 2 days later. It had been professionally wiped clean. Whoever committed the crime had not only entered her home, they had returned afterward, confident enough to erase evidence. With the phone wiped and no clear suspect, investigators returned to the physical evidence inside the house. A second forensic sweep revealed something previously overlooked. Near the back door, faint impressions appeared under specialized lighting. They were partial shoe prints, barely visible against the hardwood floor. The tread pattern was distinct, belonging to a rare brand of hiking boots not commonly sold in Ridgeway. Detectives began comparing the pattern to footwear owned by people in Hannah's life. One name quickly stood out: Daniel Reeves, a fellow teacher who had joined the school earlier that year. Daniel was known for wearing rugged outdoor gear, even during casual days at work. Several co-workers remembered his dark hiking boots clearly. Further inquiry revealed Daniel had visited Hannah's home weeks before her death to fix a leaking sink. That visit gave him access to her layout, her routines, and possibly even her keys. The idea that someone could quietly copy a spare key no longer seemed far-fetched. When questioned, Daniel appeared composed. He provided a grocery store receipt, placing him away from Hannah's neighborhood that night. At first glance, the timeline supported his claim. However, investigators noticed the timestamp looked smudged and slightly distorted. Police obtained surveillance footage from the store. It showed Daniel entering the building, but leaving less than 10 minutes later, much earlier than expected. The short visit reopened suspicion. Still, there was no direct proof placing him inside Hannah's home at the time of her death. As suspicion around Daniel grew, detectives uncovered another critical detail that shifted the investigation. Just days before her death, Hannah had filed an internal complaint with the school administration. The complaint accused Daniel of unwanted attention, persistent messages, and behavior that made her uncomfortable. Administrators had scheduled a formal meeting for the following week. If proven, the complaint could have damaged Daniel's career permanently. Phone data revealed that Daniel's device had pinged cell towers near Hannah's neighborhood several times over the past month, often late at night. When confronted with this information, he claimed he used that route for evening drives to clear his mind. The explanation sounded weak, but not impossible. Then the case took an unexpected turn. DNA results from evidence collected at the scene came back. A trace sample recovered from Hannah's bedsheet did not match Daniel. It also did not match Mark, her ex-boyfriend. The unknown profile belonged to someone else entirely. Investigators felt the ground shift beneath them. If Daniel had motive and suspicious movements, but no DNA link, the truth might be more complicated than it appeared. The locked house, the erased phone, the hidden fears Hannah had researched online, all pointed towards someone calculated and patient. Ridgeway's fear deepened. The possibility that a third, unseen person had been inside that quiet blue house made the case far more chilling than anyone first imagined. With the DNA profile unidentified, detectives shifted their focus back to Hannah's digital footprint, believing the answer might be hidden in data rather than fingerprints. A forensic team gained access to her cloud storage, recovering files that had not been deleted. Inside a private folder labeled "If Anything Happens," they found screenshots, dates, and detailed notes. Hannah had carefully documented threatening online messages from an anonymous account that had followed her for months. The messages were specific and unsettling. They referenced the clothes she wore to work, the time she left school, even the groceries she carried into her house. Whoever sent them had been watching her closely and consistently. The account used encrypted email services and fake usernames, making it difficult to trace. Cyber investigators eventually tracked login activity linked to the anonymous account. The signals led to a public Wi-Fi network at the Ridgeway Community Library. Surveillance footage from the library showed a figure wearing a hooded jacket sitting at a corner computer terminal on multiple nights that matched the message timestamps. After enhancing the footage, investigators were stunned. The person at the terminal was not Daniel. It was Laura Bennett, Hannah's closest friend. Laura had attended the vigil, stood beside Hannah's family, and publicly mourned her loss. The shock deepened when forensic tests revealed Laura's fingerprints on the trash bag that contained Hannah's wiped phone. The case was no longer about suspicion. It was about betrayal. Laura Bennett had always appeared supportive and dependable. She and Hannah had known each other for years, sharing holidays, weekend trips, and personal struggles. That history made the new evidence almost impossible to accept. Detectives approached the situation carefully, knowing that emotional closeness often hides deeper tensions. Financial records revealed Laura had been facing serious debt. Credit card balances were high, and loan payments were overdue. More troubling was the discovery of a small life insurance policy taken out months earlier, listing Laura as beneficiary. The policy had been filed under the explanation of a shared financial investment, something no one else seemed to know about. Investigators also uncovered dozens of deleted messages from Laura's phone. Though erased, fragments were recovered. They showed obsessive patterns, tracking Hannah's schedule, noting who she met, and expressing frustration about being pushed away. Friends later confirmed Hannah had been slowly distancing herself from Laura in the weeks before her death. Forensic specialists made the connection final. Tiny fibers found on Hannah's pillow matched fibers from a jacket recovered from Laura's apartment. The DNA sample taken from the bedsheet matched Laura as well. The unknown profile was no longer unknown. The mystery of the locked house was solved when police discovered Laura still possessed an old spare key Hannah had given her years earlier. Trust had granted her access, and that trust had been fatally misused. Laura Bennett had always appeared supportive and dependable. She and HA's investigators reconstructed the final night. A clear and chilling timeline began to form. Laura had visited Hannah that evening under the appearance of wanting to repair their strained friendship. Security cameras from nearby homes showed her car parked a short distance away to avoid attention. She entered the house using the spare key, knowing the alarm code Hannah had shared with her long ago. Evidence suggested the confrontation was brief but deliberate. There were no signs of chaos because Laura had chosen her moment carefully. Forensic analysis showed that after Hannah was killed, Laura remained inside the house for nearly an hour. During that time, she staged details to mislead investigators. She removed the phone, later wiping it clean to destroy any recent communication. She also attempted to shift suspicion toward Daniel by purchasing the same rare hiking boots weeks earlier and pressing them lightly against the floor near the back door. Digital evidence further exposed the depth of her planning. The threatening anonymous messages had been sent from library computers on nights when Laura claimed to be elsewhere. She had built a false narrative of stalking to create confusion and sympathy. What Laura failed to consider was the precision of modern forensic science. Microscopic fibers, location data, and recovered metadata quietly dismantled her carefully constructed story. The image of a grieving best friend slowly gave way to the reality of calculated betrayal. The trial exposed every hidden layer of the case, turning what once seemed like a quiet tragedy into a story of obsession and control. Prosecutors presented a detailed timeline supported by digital records, fiber analysis, financial documents, and surveillance footage. Each piece fit together with cold precision. The life insurance policy revealed motive. The recovered messages showed resentment building over months. The spare key explained the locked doors. What once looked like an impossible crime now appeared carefully engineered. Experts testified about the anonymous threats, explaining how Laura had used public computers and encrypted accounts to disguise her identity. Forensic specialists demonstrated how microscopic fibers from her jacket transferred onto Hannah's pillow during the final moments. The wiped phone, once thought to be a clever move, ultimately strengthened the case by proving intentional tampering. Hannah's private folder, labeled "If Anything Happens," became one of the most haunting pieces of evidence. It showed that she sensed danger but had misjudged its source. She had feared an outsider, never imagining the threat stood beside her at vigils and family gatherings. Laura was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Ridgeway slowly returned to routine, but something fundamental had changed. The case left behind a quiet warning. Sometimes the most terrifying danger does not come from strangers in the dark. It comes from someone trusted enough to hold the spare key.